In this sharp and tactical showdown between two very strong players, can you find the elegant move that White missed that would have ended the game on the spot? Pause the video and have a go. So the move is f6. This sacrifices a pawn. Now if Black captures on f6, we have the move g6. And of course if Black captures again, we go queen takes g6. If the king tries to escape to d7, we go queen g8. And because this knight has no squares, this rook is going to hang. If instead the king comes to f8, we have rook to g8 with the, again, unanswerable threat of queen g7 check, picking up the rook, and because Black's forces are so poorly coordinated, queen g7 is unavoidable. If instead of g takes f6, Black goes back to f8 with the bishop, we have bishop e3, we can just continue to develop as normal. Our plan is knight e2, castle queenside. If Black tries to capitalise on his material with g takes f6, we've got g6, threatening to take on f7, so if queen e7 to defend, we've got rook g1, again with the threat of if take, we can take with the queen, forcing Black's king to move, and again lining up for a decisive attack. So here we have a very sharp and unorthodox attacking game between two grandmasters, Henrik Danielsen and Thomas Luther. We have the birds opening with f4, d5, knight f3. White's idea in this opening is basically to control the dark squares in the centre because it's a dark square strategy. The pawn and knight will work together to control e5. He might play b3, bishop b2 as well. He will also go e3 and aim to develop the bishop to b5 to take out the knight that's on c6, which again weakens Black's control of the e5 square. Once White's got e5 under control, he can then follow up with moves like g4, g5 and start a kingside attack. So it's very aggressive, slightly unsound, because if Black knows what he's doing, he'll just end up with a better position with normal developing moves. His ideal setup is probably something like this. He'll probably play queen d7 and castle queenside as well. So Black goes bishop g4, try and weaken White's control of the e5 square. White goes e3, support the knight with the queen, prevent Black doubling his pawns, and also if Black plays knight c6, which is the main move, he can go bishop b5, then after e6 or something, he'll just take the knight immediately. After b takes, White's lost his bishop pair, but he's got good control over this e5 square. He's going to follow up with b3, bishop b2. This is just a slightly different way to play the position, to be honest. I mean, Black is going to probably play bishop d6 and force e5 through eventually. Anyway, Black didn't do this. He went knight to d7. Now, of course, bishop b5 is just blocked by c6, so he's not going to do that. He's going to play h3 instead, provoke bishop takes f3, queen takes f3. Now, the first piece White's developed is his queen. I think that gives you a taste of things to come in this game. Black goes knight gf6, very logical defending this pawn. A slightly better way to play would have been e6, a bit more solid, because after, let's say, b3 going with the same plan, Black has got ideas of basically playing h5 and then knight gf6, and then this g4 move, which is quite dangerous later on, doesn't happen. Anyway, Black played knight gf6, giving White the chance to play g4. And now actually he's got a very slight edge here. Black plays e6 now, and here the best move is actually to play g5, though White didn't do this. I think it would have been in the spirit of the opening, but he didn't. And then the knight doesn't want to go back to g8, that's just so ugly. We can just then follow up with b3 and have a lead in development. So the knight will come out to e4, but then of course we've got d3 and the knight's being kicked back. We're gaining time, we're making a square to develop our knight. We'll probably just still follow up with the same plan. We can even consider h4, bishop h3. We'll probably castle queenside and then try and force through f5 eventually. Anyway, White didn't do this, he went d3, bit more slower and orthodox. Black goes bishop b4 check, a bit of a curious move, I'm not sure I would have played that. The best move is actually either to challenge immediately with h5. Of course, rule of thumb, if your opponent is going for a Pawnstorm, you want to challenge it as early as possible before it gets into the full steam ahead kind of mode of the Pawnstorm. We want to challenge it before we're getting steamrolled on the king side. If you don't want to challenge, you can instead play c6 to support this pawn, and then we've got ideas of going bishop d6 and e5. The queen can also come out to a5 and gain time on the king. Anyway, black didn't do that, he played bishop b4 check. This lets white just play c3, which is a move he wanted to do anyway because it supports d4. So bishop goes back to d6 and e4. Now, given a few moves, white might go e5, d4, block up the centre, which is the first step of a successful kingside attack. Then he might put his bishop on e3, his knight on d2, he might castle queenside and go f5, let's say. White has mostly just made pawn and queen moves in this game, and that's not going to change anytime soon. Black goes d takes e4, d takes c4, and e5. Now this is the correct plan, but as you can see by the eval, it's actually already quite bad for black here. He's played too passively and allowed white to gain too much kingside space. White goes g5, getting time on the knight, which is forced to go back to this ugly, ugly square g8. He's going to have to spend another move to bring it out. His queen will, after that, will still be blocked in, so black will still be forced to play c6, queen c7 if he wants to castle queenside. His other option is just play knight e7, then castle into the storm, come what may, and get steamrolled by the kingside attack. So white plays f5, another very sensible move. This keeps the bishop locked in as this is no longer a threat. If the knight comes out to e7, we've now got the additional threat of f6. And then after takes, we've got this very nice pawn jutting into black's position, disturbing his coordination. The best medicine to such a slightly premature thrust is to play h6 or something like that to try and break up this Pawnstorm and create weaknesses for black to attack. However, here white can just go h4 and he's still better. Bishop e7, trying to put pressure on this pawn. Again, this is actually a blunder, as you can see from the eval bar. The best move is just queen a7, queen e7, keep it simple, and then I'll let you on a little secret. The computer actually thinks the best move here is king d1. Don't ask me why. Okay, that's beyond my ability to explain. Maybe the computer wants to bring the king to c2 and castle by hand, but that's such a strange strategy. If I was here, I would probably just play the normal plan with bishop e3. I might try and think about gaining space with a4, which black probably can't with a5. Anyway, black played bishop e7, and here can you find the shocking move that actually wins for white. It is queen h5, which white did play, but with a very specific follow-up in mind. Now this actually prevents h takes g5 because the rook would be hanging, of course, so it's a very clever way of defending the g5 pawn tactically for now. Black goes knight b6, just trying to reorganise his pieces. His knight might have a future coming to a4, and then if this bishop's moved out of the way, this pawn would be hanging. He basically wants to move his queen, then castle his king and get out of danger. Bishop e3, queen d6, very sensible, and now knight a3, a move I like very much because the c3 square is occupied, of course. By bringing it to a3, we're threatening to play knight c4, exchange off this knight and develop our bishop. We can even think about knight b5, and if the queen moves away, then we can capture this pawn. Just puts black under pressure and forces him to think about all these threats. Black plays c6, wisely covering the square, knight c4, knight takes, bishop takes, now castles queenside. White goes rook h2. This is basically just one way white can execute his plan. He wants to bring a rook to the d file. This will, of course, can't do it immediately because black will just capture it, but if white can bring a rook to the d file, he will, number one, gain time on this queen, and number two, exchange off this rook, which is defending black's king. White can then penetrate with the queen with moves like queen f7 or even f6 as a sacrifice in some positions. And the fact white's king is not very safe. It doesn't count for anything because these bishops control all the key squares. Anyway, rook h2, his idea is rook d2. Another way of achieving this plan is king e2 and rook d1. This keeps the rooks connected. Rook h2, queen c7, and now white goes bishop takes f7. Again, this pawn move is actually still not possible because of the pin. Now you can kind of see in this game how white's early aggression has paid off. He has successfully bamboozled his opponent with queen and pawn moves only. Developing moves were not necessary because, well, all the developing moves black made just end up being wasted moves. He's wasted so many tempi that this has actually worked. H takes g5, queen h8, and knight h6. Basically, black is lost and he's going for desperados here. Queen takes g7, knight g4, just trying to go for something, maybe going for this fork here. And now white goes for the coup de grace with f6. Now, of course, knight takes h2, we just got bishop e6 check, king b8, and now we're taking on e7. After rook e8, we can just castle, and we're threatening something like this. Black's not surviving here. If instead black just moves the bishop, let's say to d6, we can still go bishop e6, king b8, queen takes, bishop takes, and now we're going to win this knight and promote this pawn. And so you can see this fork actually counts for nothing. I mean, even if white plays a move like rook e2, he'd still be winning, because after knight takes e3, we can still just go bishop e6 check, king b8, f6, and so on. So short but very nice game from white. It shows that you don't need to play the best opening theory to beat an international master. You can just trick your opponent. That's what chess is all about. We're trying to put our opponents in positions that they don't understand so that they make mistakes. We're not trying to play the mainline opening theory. We are playing the bird's opening to confuse our opponents. So I hope you learned something from that game. I hope you learned something of value that you can take to your own games, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next video.